And good, good evening and welcome everyone to our presentation this evening. I am Debbie Goddard and I am chairing the Lower Hudson Special Education Task Force. Several members are here with us this evening. And we really wanted to have a deep dive into BOCES. So we will I think get started. If you're not familiar with the task force, we are basically the purpose of the Lower Hudson Special Education Task Force is to improve educational access and outcomes for students with disabilities through a collaborative regional and statewide network of stakeholders representing a variety of roles in addressing special education needs for students. I'm going to hand you over to Mary Ellen Urini, and she will introduce our panelists tonight. And along with her, Stephanie Roback will be moderating tonight's presentation.
Okay, just really quickly, thank you, Debbie. So your moderators for tonight are Stephanie Roebuck, Esquire. Stephanie is a principal member of the White Plains law firm of Keene and Bean, PC. Her practice is concentrated in the representation of school districts and municipalities. Ms. Roebuck is currently on the executive committee of the Lower Hudson Special Education Task Force. I am Mary Ellen Urini. I'm a school psychologist and transition specialist with Rockland BOCES, and I'm also currently on the executive committee of the Lower Hudson Special Education Task Force. With us, our panelists for this evening include Dr. Christine DeTrano, who is the Executive Director of Student Services at Rockland BOCES, where she has held several positions since 1998. She has worked with students who demonstrate significant behavioral and emotional challenges and has been instrumental in the successful launch and growth of several BOCES programs, including Partnership for Safe Youth. Dr. DeTrano's published research, Mental Health: A Parent's Guide, gives a voice to parents in the educational interventions for their children. Also with us this evening is Kim Bell. In her 26th year at Rockland BOCES, Ms. Bell currently holds the position of Assistant Superintendent for Career Services, overseeing the Career Technical Education Division, PTech, and Adult Licensed Practical Nursing Program at Rockland BOCES. She worked in marketing for 10 years prior to transitioning her career to education. Kim is a graduate of James Madison University, Fordham University, and SUNY New Paltz. Also with us this evening is Jessica Walker. Ms. Walker is currently in her second year as Director of the Center for Special Services at Southern Westchester BOCES. With a distinguished career spanning over 2 decades, Ms. Walker brings a wealth of experience and expertise to this role. Prior to her current position, Ms. Walker served as Principal and Assistant Director at the Center for Special Services, demonstrating a strong commitment to the success of students with diverse learning needs. Prior to joining Southern Westchester BOCES, Ms. Walker held the position of Coordinator of Speech and Language Services and Principal at a private special education school. So thank you so much for being with us tonight on this panel.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Stephanie Roebuck. I'm going to be moderating the program tonight. Basically, I'm going to be throwing out some questions to the panelists and letting them do the presentations for all of you, since they're the experts in the BOCES. I do represent a BOCES as legal counsel, so I have some familiarity, but certainly they're the people on the ground who, manage and direct some of the programs and services. So you definitely should want to hear from them. I do want to just lay out a couple of things about our presentation. First of all, we will be taking questions through the chat. This program was designed by, Mary Ellen and I, along with the Task Force Executive Committee, to be a program in which the aspects of BOCES that you may hear about through the special education process that you go through with your children, to lay a foundation for that process and answer any questions that you may have. this program is not designed to sell a particular BOCES program or market a particular BOCES program. And certainly we're not, going to talk about particular programs or students through this presentation. It really is going to be designed to be a much more general presentation to talk about the application process, talk about the interview process, talk about the types of services that you may know about and some that you may not know about with regards to the BOCES. So if we do not answer questions related to particular students, please understand that, that's not, not necessarily the purpose of this night's presentation. What I'd also like to do is just give you a very, very brief background on what a BOCES is. BOCES stands for Board of Cooperative Educational Services. It is a creature of statute. The New York State Legislature set up the BOCES as part of the educational services to be provided throughout New York State back in 1948. It is a program that is designed to provide shared educational programs and services to districts. Essentially, what it's doing is it's providing programs and services with an economy of scale perspective. If you think about it, a small school district may have one student who needs a sign language interpreter, and it may not be appropriate or cost efficient to hire one sign language appropriate interpreter for programs or services. But, the BOCES has sign language interpreters that school districts can contract with so that they can provide services to multiple school districts through their cross contracts. We're going to tonight concentrate on special services and career and technical education, but there are many more services provided by a BOCES to their component districts, like superintendent search consultations, the intensive day treatment programs, professional development, and things as mundane as digital recording management, grant writing assistance, transportation, and PR. One of the big things that you may hear about that the BOCES does provide is computer services. So a lot of the school districts use the computing services through the BOCES. In terms of representation on the panel tonight, we do have representatives from the Southern Westchester BOCES and the Rockland BOCES. Our Lower Hudson Task Force also does encompass the Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES and the Dutchess BOCES, but our panelists can speak to the types of services that each of the BOCES provides, without much variation across the state. So with that, I'm going to start by asking a fairly simple question to our special service panelists tonight, Christine and Jessica. Just generally, what are the types of special services, special education services that your BOCES each provides, to students? Christine, Jessica. Go ahead, Jessica.
It's diverse services and programs for I think all of our BOCES. Our largest programs serve students with autism spectrum needs of various ages, students with multiple disabilities, and students with therapeutic support needs and mental health needs. So those are kind of like the general categories of student programs. Christine, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, ours is similar, exactly like yours. Our largest programs are kids with developmental disabilities, medical needs, as well as therapeutic support, students with behavioral, social, emotional needs. Those would be our biggest areas.
Okay. And we do have intensive day treatment programs also on the elementary and the high school, secondary level.
And those intensive day treatment programs, are they just for students who are classified, or can they be non-classified students also access that?
Yeah, no, they're open to non-classified students too, if that's determined to be a need.
Okay.
And that's the same with us. We have IDT, we have intensive day services for elementary and high school, and that's for non-classified and classified students.
And just while we're on this particular topic, can you describe what type of services IDT provides to students who districts are seeking to have placed in those programs?
I don't know if it's the same, but for Rockland IDT, we're a collaborative with Rockland Children's Psychiatric Center. So they provide the clinical support and we provide the educational support. And in that role, they have a child psychiatrist that consults with the program that provides diagnosis, evaluations, medication management. It's very intense and it's part of an OMH, Office of Mental Health program that we're doing the education and they're doing the clinical work. It's very short term. It's 30 days for us for the high school and it could go up to 90 days for elementary.
Yeah, that's similar to what we have as well. In terms of the secondary program, middle school, high school is the collaboration with Rockland, same thing. Elementary, it's our own program. So that is a separate program, very small structured program. That is a 30, 45, or 90-day program. It does have a psychiatrist that we have brought in to work with those students and a full-time social worker as well.
Just in terms of physical space, where are these BOCES programs located, and are they all on one campus or are you spread across the region?
Yeah, we're spread across the region. Some are in district in school districts, actually housed in the school districts, and some are standalone programs, really all through lower Southern Westchester.
Similar, I think it's similar to Southern. We have a few bigger like center base that's not located within our component districts. We have a center-based program in West Nyack. We have one in Nyack, New York, and another one in Suffern. We have a smaller one down in Tappan Zee, and that's for kids with autism. And then we have 20, now we're in 30 different classrooms across Rockland districts for district-based. So those classes would be located within our public schools, our component school districts.
Stephanie, there's a quick question related to IDT. I don't know if they want to answer it now.
Yep.
The question is, what happens if a student needs more than 90 days in IDT?
It's atypical that students are there longer than 90 days. We have had that situation happen on the elementary level. Typically, it's when students come into the program and they're not classified, and their homeschool district is working on a process to have them be classified and have additional supports and services for when they go back either to their homeschool district or they are referred outside. So it does happen, but that's a long time to be in a temporary program for students. So we really want to help them become more stable, managing that social emotional regulation piece, working with the family really closely so they can go back to a permanent school placement and aren't in, a temporary placement for too long.
That's similar. I mean, we tend not to go above 90, but there have been a rare because of a multitude of different complications or things to get a student into the right next program, but those would be looked at closely.
Let's talk a little bit about how programs are accessed by students. I mean, how do students come to a program in Southern Westchester BOCES, Jessica?
What typically happens is their homeschool district has gone through a process and determined that they are going to be seeking an out-of-district placement for whatever reason. And we get a packet of student information. We have a team, we meet once a week, and we look at all of, we call them referral packets that come from surrounding components and non-component school districts sometimes. And then we look, that team is mostly clinicians and principals. And we look at the student needs, their IEP, the information that's provided, and we really look to see whether we have the right program and the appropriate program to meet that child's needs. If we do, then we are able to reach out directly to the family, to the school district, and offer what we call an intake appointment, where we're able to meet with the family, show them the program, ask a series of questions, and get to know the student a little bit and their family and their needs. to see whether this is a good fit and we can accept the child into the program. And then it's working with the home school district. There's typically, if everybody's in agreement, we come to a consensus placement meeting where we really talk about what is the program going to look like that's going to meet that individual student's needs and support them well when they come into us.
Christine, does your process vary in any way from Southern Westchester's?
It's very, very similar. I'm not sure, a lot of after it goes through the central office, it goes out to the program. So our intakes are done within the program as much as possible. I think that's, Jessica, what you were saying too. So the team at the program would actually do the intake there. So the parents have a chance to see the program for the most part, except if it's in a district-based setting. Sometimes it gets a little hard over the summer when there's some intakes there, but in general, it's a very similar process. The referrals come in. Sometimes parents have called because they want to come and see a program. The referrals come in from the district. So sometimes we have to remind the parent to call their district. They have to have a meeting first in order for us to start the process. So
and that was one of the questions I was going to ask, whether or not a parent can apply directly to a BOCES. And I guess what you're indicating is the answer to that is no.
Right.
Right. Can a school district or a CSE make a referral to a particular program within the BOCES, or does it have to be a general application to the BOCES?
Yeah, I mean, typically it's a general application because we really want to be able to consider all programs. So we look at that student, we want to be the right match. So it's a general application. Certainly there might be more than one program that might be appropriate. So we might do what's called a joint intake and have the family be able to see both programs and meet with both school teams to see whether, one or the other might be a better match for the student.
That's similar too. We do have like a checkoff sheet that the district can give, because we work very closely with the district. So they know our programs well. They know what students have been successful. So sometimes they'll check off a specific program. And if it's matching, it's good. If, like Jessica said, sometimes we like to do a joint when it's between two different programs, especially for us, if it's between something that would be considered less restrictive and a center base, because we always want to look at that level of need. But districts can put that down, and then we communicate back with the district about what our thoughts are, if it's different than what they were thinking too.
And a question, I'm sorry, a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I think it was pretty much answered already, but can a parent specifically ask for, a particular BOCES placement?
Let me just see if maybe the person who asked the question can clarify. Can they ask the CSE to make the application, or ask the BOCES to consider their child for a particular program?
CSE.
Okay. I mean, I can tell you from my experience sitting in a number of CSE meetings where BOCES programs or out-of-district programs are considered, there will be a discussion typically at the CSE level about, okay, your child has these types of needs, and we know that there may be an appropriate program through one of the BOCES housed on a particular campus or housed in a particular building. And the parent has every right to say, well, I would like to look at this program housed in a mainstream building, but I don't want to look at this program that may be, on the main campus. But what the CSE chair will generally do at that point is tell the parent that the CSE doesn't necessarily have the ability to make that kind of limitations on the application process, but that even after the application process is done and the BOCES may make a recommendation, may make a decision to accept a child into a particular program, the CSE has to come back, make the recommendation formally, and the parent can agree or object at that particular point in time.
I have a couple of other related questions. Are there program descriptions available or profiles of students in the various programs that each of you have?
Yeah, on our website, there are descriptions of each program. There's a program page for each different location that gives you a little bit of information about the program, kind of get a feel for it, who the administrators of the program are, and that's all on the website, under the Center for Special Services.
Same with, so all our programs are on our website to describe them.
In terms of a class profile, typically, I don't necessarily, a request can be made to the CSC to make a to provide a description of the types of students in particular programs, but that's sometimes a very fluid data request, and B, I think we have to, it would probably be more general in terms of a BOCES program, but they're so specifically designed to deal with particular types of students. Those general descriptions may be, may be appropriate. I mean, you've got a communications disordered program for students with autism and, with a 6:1 to 2 ratio. I think it's fairly clear what type of student would be, be accepted into a program like that. And the program descriptions online are that specific.
Yes. Could you comment on what happens like the next step? So, a district sends the packet in, and how is the follow-up done? Does the district follow up? Are districts made aware if there are, wait lists or nothing appropriate at this time? How does that work in each of your program?
The district can kind of check off whether they'd like us to on our page. I don't know if it's the same for you, Christine, on the application. They can check off if they'd like to be included in the intake or be contacted before we contact the family. If that box isn't checked, then after the intake, it's been determined what program might be best, a good match for that student. Then there's typically a phone call from the psychologist or the social worker setting up a time and working with the family to make an appointment to come and have the intake done by that program team.
That's similar. I think the other part is after that process, we communicate directly with the district. Like sometimes if the student's appropriate for the program, but there's no room in the program, then we would communicate that directly with the district, and the district then communicates that to the parent.
There is, we do waitlist letters sometimes when a student, the program is full, but the students is appropriate for the program. We think we can meet their needs. When there's an opening, we usually do a waitlist letter to let the parent and the district know that. And as Stephanie mentioned, there is some fluidity to the program. Kids do come and go, and sometimes students will go back to their home district mid-year or move or something, and then it opens up a spot for somebody on that wait list.
And that kind of dovetails into what my next question was going to be, which is, do you have to does the CSE have to apply at a particular point in time, or is it a sort of a rolling admissions process?
We take referrals all year long just because that's the need of kids, right? Of our students. And some students are able to go back. Some students go back after a quarter, mid-year, at the end of the year. So we're always taking referrals. We do like to have our kindergarten referrals come in at a time just so we can plan. So we work very closely with the CPSE to get those referrals in so we can plan on what the incoming class would look like. So we do that for us. We start like right after the new year trying to plan for that.
Yeah, that's very similar. And we also do have an extended summer program or extended year program that is open to students that are not with us year round. So some districts that don't have their own extended year program and a student is eligible for it, they will refer them to us. So that's something we do really starting in March to make sure that we can fulfill the needs if they're there for students.
And you're talking about, Jessica, just you would accept a student just for that summer program. They could return back to their in-district program after the summer with you, correct?
Correct. And that's typically a district that doesn't have their own, or it's full, or they have a need to send a student out just for the 6 weeks that are eligible for that summer program.
Can you talk about students that may have medical needs that are if they come with medical needs along with their educational needs, how the BOCES can handle medically fragile students?
We do have skilled nursing in our programs. We have wonderful, I'm sure Christine does too, wonderful service providers, occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech and language therapists that are really very, very skilled in working with a variety of student needs. Certainly we have students that are more medically fragile that may require their own nurse on their IEP, and that is handled. Sometimes the school district will send that nurse. Sometimes they'll contract with the BOCES to provide the nurse if a student really needs a skilled nursing service throughout the day, including like on the school bus.
That's the same. We have very similar. We have some students who need a individual nurse. So we either provide it or the school district does, as well as on the bus for students that require that level.
Can I,
Go
I-
ahead, Miriam.
my apologies. Someone had asked, is there an age cutoff? Like, for example, a student who's 20 years old, can they still apply to go to BOCES?
Yeah, we do
Yeah.
have students that come to us,
We do.
that late in their educational career. So we do have students, 20 and some staying till 21, some in some circumstances staying till 22. But are referred sometimes, after the age of 18, 19. So
Yes,
it does happen.
same with us.
And just going back very quickly to the, students who are in IDT, if there's a student who's not classified and, they're looking to, move along that process, who would do the referral in school? Oh, when there's a student who's not classified and they're looking to go to IDT, who would make that referral in the school? Would that be the principal? Would that be who would that be?
For us, a lot of times the students that are non-classified, the guidance counselor
Yep.
is making it.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's just who we see making that, because they're still they're interacting with the guidance counselor because they're having some sort of need in their buildings. And sometimes a principal, but most of the time I see it from guidance counselors.
Yeah, the same for us.
Yeah, it's been my experience that a lot of kids who aren't classified who need IDT are usually coming off of some sort of maybe a short-term hospitalization, and they need to stabilize either on medication or stabilize in terms of their regulation before they come back to school. So a lot of that referral to IDT for the non-classified students, even for the classified students, because IDT is not a classified special education service, is coming from either a school counselor or a school psychologist, directly to the IDT. They seem to be the people that have the best relationships and the most stable relationships with the IDT programs. In terms of just, year to year, projecting forward, how does the BOCES go about determining whether or not, there are new programs or new sections of programs that they may need to open, moving forward?
We work collaboratively with our component school districts, and there's like a services guide that we send out, and they then tell us what services they're looking for. So that's one way, so we can plan ahead for the next year. And the other way is we look at the trends of all the intakes that are coming in and look if there's like an unmet need, or if there's a different type of age group, or are we getting more referrals for certain, so we can be responsive to meet the needs of our students. So we look at both things, but we do ask our districts the year before, like actually around this time, for them to project to us so we can plan for the following year.
Yeah, because it does also affect our hiring, our space allocation. So we ask those questions, both students that come and are full-time in our programs and students who we may go into their own homeschool district provide a service. So we definitely look at that. And as Christine said, the intake numbers, we really carefully look at that, and we say where are the intakes coming from, what sort of students, needs are we seeing, and also our wait list, like how many students are on that wait list? Do we potentially need to look at another section for the following year?
So there is a responsiveness to, programming that you can provide to your component school districts, correct?
Yeah, that's a pretty constant conversation, I think, and they all know how to reach us, and they do reach us when there's a need for either a particular student or a service that that they need in their district they're not able to provide.
Okay. I guess I want to just wrap up, the special services portion. We can always come back to you. You're not going anywhere, but I did want to pivot a bit to career services and the services that are provided through career tech, and especially the career tech services that may be provided to special education students. So, but just for for can you just speak about when you have a student placed in a special class within the BOCES, what is the relationship between the BOCES and the home school district of the student? And, from a ownership perspective, and that's a terrible word to use, but who owns the student? Which graduation ceremony do they go to? Which sports team do they play on? Which, all of those types of relationships, how is that handled once a student enters a BOCES program?
So the student, our students, we feel really like attached to our students. They come to us, we meet all their needs, and they're still the student of their home district. So that's their first district, is their home district where they're coming from. That district will chair the CSE meetings. So the IEP still comes from that school district. We're part of the team to develop it, but they are chairing it. They're still the ones. The diploma will be issued from that school district. And a lot of our kids go to both. They come to our graduation because they feel very bonded with the BOCES program, and they're able to go to their home school graduation. As far as extracurricular activities, it depends on the needs of the student. But for the students that it works and it's the right fit, some students don't want to go back and do sports or something back in their district. And other students really want the support and want to. So we work very collaboratively with the home district to get them to have access to what's right. It's individual needs. I think so. It's a cooperative, right? So the district sends us the student, they're still part of that school district. And we collaborate with them to provide the best possible appropriate education we can to meet their needs.
And we think of them as shared students, because as Christine said, we are very close to the students. They're coming every day to us, sometimes full day, sometimes those older students are going to career and tech for half the day and coming to us for the other half of the day. But certainly, every year we met throughout the year, but every year we also regroup together as a committee to look at the students' needs and how are they being met, and what else might they want to do? Because sometimes the student will come and not want to do extracurriculars in their own home school district, but over time that changes, right? As they get older, as their skills change, as they maybe feel more confident about different interests. So we look at it every year as a team.
Great. Mary Ellen, are there any other questions on special services before we move on to career tech?
And someone in the group, is an advocate, and does counsel parents to see, all of the potential BOCES programs that perhaps might be appropriate. And I guess the question just is, would that be your general guidance to suggest to parents that, if there are more than one if there are multiple programs as possibilities, would you, guide a parent to see all of them?
It depends. Sometimes we have a request from parents. I'm just giving an example of a student that may be getting maybe alternately assessed, and they're asking to go view a all state assessed program. At that point, really, that wouldn't be we don't want to show too many programs that wouldn't be appropriate. But if we're between two programs and it's a joint intake, that would be totally okay. But I think sometimes it could get to be overwhelming for a parent, especially for a parent with a student with a disability, to see a program that's not able to meet their child's needs based on their IEP or based on the profile of the students. So sometimes showing a program like that could be difficult because wouldn't be a program that child would be accepted to. So I think it's in the middle. It depends. There are some crossover between programs, so sometimes that could work out fine. But there are other times that I would say it could be difficult to look at a program that there would be no way that there would be an acceptance from a BOCES into that program.
I would say that if, the committee has determined a couple programs, like you're saying, Christine, there's more than one that's appropriate to meet the students' needs, that you want to look at all of those, anything that's recommended, because sometimes, seeing the program can really make a difference for students and families. The same as seeing, a student can make a difference for the program, right? A student isn't a paper file, and a program isn't just what's in our program guide. So I think it's really a great experience if we determine that there's more than one program that may be appropriate, that a parent looks at all of those.
And I think both of you have said this a couple of times. You talk about the student coming on the interview.
Yeah.
Is that a requirement for for the BOCES?
Yes.
And I know there are a couple of questions related to career and technical ed, so I know we want to get to that.
We'll move on to career and tech. So Kim,
Lastly, though, is
Okay.
there's a parent who wants to know, like, is there a certain time or method for bringing up to their district if let's say a family is interested in exploring options through BOCES, like, is there a certain time or method for approaching a district?
A parent can do that anytime, right? Have a conversation with their school district, and bring any, concerns or thoughts forward that they want the committee to consider.
Right. Kim, you are going to be representing all of the BOCES in Lower Hudson. Though I know from talking to you and from, dealing with both Southern Westchester as their representative and knowing Putnam Northern Westchester, I think the programs are somewhat similar. You've got, a couple of different options that you may have, in one BOCES and not the other, but it's generally the same. So can you talk about what career and technical education is, just for those parents who may not be familiar?
Our programs are preparing students for college and the workforce. We mostly serve students who thrive in a hands-on environment. We're shared time sites, all of us in the Lower Hudson. So students spend half their day at their home high school and then half their day with us. Although we do collaborate regularly with our special services or student services programs. And some of those students will come to us half day as well. So they go to 3 graduations, not just 2. They have a lot of options. I apologize. I have a little bit of a cold. And at Rockland, and I know also at Southern Westchester, I'm not quite sure about Putnam, we have 2 levels of programming. Across CTE at Rockland BOCES, 50% of our students have IEP. So we accept students of all different levels. Our higher level CTE programs are our standard ones: cosmetology, where there's a licensing component to it, carpentry, criminal justice, and a lot of them have college credits attached to them. So students earning college credits and high school credits simultaneously. Those classes can be as large as 24 with 1 teacher and 1 teaching assistant. So a student in those programs has to be able to, function with those types of supports. And then we have what we call our CSP programs, which there's more support in those programs. It's a 12-1-1, 12 students, 1 teacher, 1 teaching assistant. And those students most likely, because we never say never, are going straight into the workforce and maybe not into a post-secondary situation. So we have a variety across both of those. And we also have a GED program for students that may not have been successful in a regular high school program. And I work with Christine on that as well. We have students with IEPs, without IEPs. And we have a newcomer program for students that are new to.
So how does a student go about applying for a career tech program?
We work through the homeschool school counselors, so the guidance counselors will make the referral, and they will actually make the request as to what program they feel the students are appropriate for. So we really rely on them to put the students in a program where they'll be successful.
In terms of the types of programs that you have, what are, some of the more popular ones, what are the ones that there may be waiting lists for, and how do you handle that?
I've been at this a long time, and it's interesting how career in tech was not a valued program many years ago, and now all of a sudden we're like a hot commodity. So our electrical program this year, we had 40 students on a wait list. So that seems to be, construction trades have become very popular. Parents have realized that plumbers can really make some good money. Cosmetology is probably one of our toughest programs because sometimes parents don't understand the rigor involved in that curriculum, where students are learning about skin diseases and words that I could never even pronounce. The textbook is thick, and for some students, as much as they would love to be in the program, it's not appropriate because you can't work in the field without a license. So we're really, I have to say, all of our programs are, really full. But construction right now is the hot.
And what are the age, when do you take students? Beginning of high school, middle of high school, just senior year?
For our regular CTE programs, we would love to start them in 11th grade and keep them for 2 years. That's ideal. Do accept first-year seniors. For our, again, the CSP programs, the 12-1-1, we can accept them as early as 9th. Not ideal, 10th is better. So 10th, 11th, 12th.
And so let's talk a little bit about the career tech programs that you do offer for students who may have special education needs. How does that work when you've got a child with an IEP who's interested in culinary arts? What can the BOCES provide for that student?
So many times, students with IEPs, a hands-on environment is just perfect in a classroom. And, a traditional classroom may not work for them. But when the classroom setting, you're only sitting for 30 minutes and then you're out in the kitchen and actually working, we see that a lot of students really thrive. We also do abide by the IEP. So if a student needs, any kind of testing accommodations, classroom accommodations, we do abide by those. We have special ed consultants who will push into a classroom and assist student maybe struggling. So, we follow the IEP.
Jessica, I'm going to throw this out to you only because representing your BOCES, I happen to know you operate. What is an ICTE? So
it's similar to what Kim was talking about in the students that need a smaller class, need potentially some of the pieces modified for them, and some of our students that are with us full day in our alternately assessed programs actually do participate in the ICTE programs at our Career and Tech Center. And our students that are state assessed will go over half day in 11th and 12th grade to do some of their career and tech education there as well.
And I'm going to throw this out to all three of you, but can you talk a little bit about the difference between career and tech and a job coaching through a life skills program? I mean, we're talking about quantitatively different things, correct?
Yes, I would like to say that the teachers in the career and tech world are not special education teachers. They're not educated that way. Not that we can't handle special education students, and we do it every day. But a life skills student may have needs that our students are not trained or equipped to manage. So we typically say that the life skills students are better served on Christine's side of the house and her alternative programs, and the CDOS students are better served on my side of the house in the CT.
I do have a couple of.
Okay.
I'm sorry. For let's say a student who is classified, would it be the same process as a student who's non-classified, like going to a guidance counselor? How would they show their interest to their district if they want to come to BOCES?
I think on the district side, the school counselors work closely with the CSE, chair folks, but we take mostly referrals from the school counselors. But when they're referred through Christine, it comes through the clinicians and the school counselors over on the student services.
I can say, having sat in on a number of CSE meetings where a student or their parent is expressing a desire to go through career and tech and with their IEP, generally what will happen is that the CSE chair will either invite the guidance counselor to that meeting or will refer the parent to the guidance counselor so that that connection is typically explained and made at the CSE meeting if the student is expressing an interest in, a career ed path like carpentry or masonry or something like that.
There's a question, how can a life skills student access CTEC options? And I think you kind of did answer some of that, Kim, to just say that generally the clinician or something, someone would refer them if they're appropriate. But I don't know if you maybe just want to mention or go into a little bit of detail, like the level of support or independence that's required in order to, function on the CTEC campus.
Safety is a big concern. Students are working in kitchens. They're working with tools, so they have to be able to navigate a 12-1-1 classroom environment to start with, and be safe for themselves and for the students around them. And also, we don't have job coaches, but we do like to send students out on internships wherever possible. So they would need to be able to go out with one or two other students and be able to function on a job site alone. We don't have individual job coaches. We don't provide that service on my side of the house, whereas Christine does on her side of the house. And I don't know about Jessica, how that works over by you.
Yeah, it's very similar to what you're describing.
So, and again, I just want to say, just reiterate that my teachers they're not special ed. So a life skills student will not be getting the services that they need, most likely. I'd never say never because you never know. In the CTE world, they may need more support.
Mary Ellen, I'm going to throw this question out to you, even though you've been moderating, but can you talk a little bit about sort of the transition type services that you offer for students in either career tech or through the BOCES?
Well, I work on the student services side, although
Okay.
I do work with students that also go to career and technical ed half day. So part of my role as a transition specialist, I mean, I'm working with individual students in our BOCES programs. In regards to transition planning, it's doing career exploration activities, it's doing connecting the families up with services in the community, um, thinking about what the next steps are for after graduation, and exploring those things, and again trying to assist the student and the family about what's the most realistic option and the different steps that you have to do to get there. It's kind of like it in a nutshell. And I know one of the questions was, does BOCES have transition programs for students turning 18? So, I mean, for all of our students, let's say our students, our life skills students, when they turn 16, a lot of them do get different experiences, whether within school or out in the community. It could be volunteer experiences and things like that. A lot of our district-based programs have different kinds of activities that are built in also to give them different kinds of work experience. They work for the district food pantry. They have a cafe in one of the high schools that the students run. They help to run the school store, um, you know, things like that. So we help to, as transition specialists, help them to, navigate so all these different experiences to help build up their strengths and skills so that they can be as successful as possible when they graduate.
Jessica, does Southern Westchester BOCES have career programming that is provided to your students also?
Yes, again, very similar. So, supporting students and families with referrals and applications to transition agencies for after they leave us, so that is all in place, and a lot of community-based experiences, as Marilyn was talking about. So students that have supported work experiences in the community, if that's something that they are able to access, or just being in the community and as simple as, being in a grocery store and making purchases, and being managing the social piece of it, and then the kind of daily life skills living piece of it as well in the community.
Yes, that's one thing I didn't mention is we do have community-based instruction trips, and it's not just a field. I mean, we do have field trips as well, but that community-based instruction that's what it's on. It's instructing students to, yes, learn how to shop for groceries, learn how to make a purchase, and they're accompanied by school staff, so they're not going, independently. But the hope is that over time that we're able to help them become, again, as independent as they possibly can for themselves.
So in a typical scenario, you've got a student who may be classified in a mainstream building. The school counselors are usually providing the information to the parents about things like SPOA, or county-based services that a student may need once they become an adult or they're no longer in a school setting. If you've got a student on the special services campus, who's providing, is it the BOCES staff that's providing that information, or the homeschool district counselors, or a combination of both? Who's doing that type of work on behalf of the students in your programs?
On behalf of the students in the program, it would be BOCES staff. So it'd either be a transition specialist, or it would be a clinician, it would be a school psychologist, or it could be a guidance counselor, it could be a social worker. So we would make referrals and assist families in regards to, and again, some of the families I know that are on may not be familiar with some of these terms, but OPWDD, Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, or Access VR in regards to work support. We would help with all of that, but in conjunction with the home school district. So they would be made aware of any potential, agencies or services that we're applying for on the student's behalf.
And that's usually discussed in at the annual review meeting when you're looking at the transition piece of the IEP, thinking about where are our families already connected to, and what else is there needing support in doing that.
And Kim, from, the career and technical standpoint, when you've got students who are potentially graduating, does BOCES offer any sort of support for students who want to go into, the field in terms of, connecting them with trade unions or helping them with applications or things along those lines?
Yes, absolutely. Our goal is for all of our seniors to go out on some type of internship, and many times they do get hired through the internships they go on. We also have college and career fairs, and we have job boards. We get calls regularly about different local businesses that are hiring. So we support that. Not as intensely as they do on our student service.
And Kim, if you can just mention, someone is asking about, what about someone, a young adult, like perhaps they didn't go to CTech while they were in high school, now they're graduating high school and they think they might be interested in one of those trades.
We do allow adults into our CTE programs during the day, but our high school students get priority. So it's only if there is room that we would allow them to come in. And unfortunately, we have less and less room because we're accommodating more and more high school students. But we do offer through our adult education programs, programs in the evenings that are similar to what we're offering during the day. So those are always an option.
Can you talk, not talk a little bit, but can you just list some of the career adult ed classes, both Rockland BOCES and Southern Westchester BOCES offer to adults? And it's not just 19-year-olds, it could be, 30-year-olds. What type of programs those are?
Sure. I know we offer welding programs, auto collision, electrical, another big, large program in the evenings, home improvement, carpentry, pretty much for a lot of the same programs that we offer during the day. Culinary, it's more like, fun cooking.
Yeah.
Mediterranean, this or that. But mostly in the trades evening.
And would those applications be done directly from the adult to the BOCES? There's no school to go, the school to apply through, correct?
Yes, and we get a lot of referrals to Access VR for those programs. So they're well aware of what's out there. But Jessica, I don't know about you guys.
That's very similar. I think you mentioned everything that was kind of like more preferred, adult programming, and we offer the same. I think HVAC also is really something that's really very desired right now, but mostly, as you mentioned, evening programs, because the classrooms are pretty full with students during the day.
I know at one point there were LPN and RN programs being offered through the BOCES. Is that still the case or not?
It is for Rockland, and I believe Dutchess and Orange Ulster BOCES also still have their practical nursing programs for adults.
Ours was, I think, not running for a little bit of time, but I believe it is back up and running now.
I know we're almost out of time, but I do want to just circle back to one question that someone had asked, more related to the student services side. And that question is related to, does BOCES accept students with behavioral challenges, behavioral intervention plans?
Yes. We specialize in it.
I was going to say, a lot of times the BOCES is the first stop for students
Yes.
with behavioral needs because the BOCES staff is typically more trained to.
Sometimes we like to redo if someone comes in with a behavior intervention plan, because it was based on an FBA that was done in a different environment. So sometimes coming to our programs, they may not need that level. So that's all discussed because we may have more in our tiered approach on a universal level. And sometimes we need to redo the behavior intervention plan based on the new environment, because if you're not in a big high school, it just may look different, the behavior. So we would look at that.
And I just want, I know we're close to the end, but just someone who is in who just had to sign off. She just wanted to give a giant thank you to all of the amazing BOCES panel and staff. She said she's actually a teacher in the county, and said we're so lucky to have amazing programs to service our kids. Thank you.
And, I know we are out of time, so I'm going to echo that. Thank you so much to the panelists, Kim, Jessica, and Christine for taking your time this evening when you didn't have to provide this perspective to, our task force members and to the parents and advocates out there who are interested in learning a little more about the BOCES. It really is very appreciated.
A pleasure.
And to you too, Mary Ellen. Thank you very
No,
much.
to you too, Stephanie. No, thank you. Hopefully this was helpful.
On behalf of the Lower Hudson Task Force, I'd like to say thank you again also.
Great. Have a happy holiday, everyone.